noticed this? You're at a social event, a party or something, and you meet someone new, and they express an opinion that really closely aligns with your own view of the matter, and you go, wow, they're quite smart, right? And then a little bit later in the evening, they say something that's the total opposite of what you believe to be true, and you go, oh, maybe not so smart after all, right? The thing is, the way our brains are wired, we unconsciously and very automatically give credence and value to people who think like us. And we just as automatically and unconsciously tend to dismiss, even demonize people who don't. It's easy to listen to people we agree with, right? But when it comes to politics, it's excruciating. It's almost impossible to listen to people with really different political views, isn't it? This very human phenomena just affected who we hung out with at parties. I wouldn't be standing here. But the problem is actually much more serious than that. This inability to listen, to really deeply listen to different points of view, is literally imperiling our future. It's jeopardizing our social structures, our democratic processes. It's destroying our ability to make good decisions together, decisions that affect who we elect as leaders, decisions about our economy, our security, the health of our communities, and the health of the planet itself. I want to tell you why I believe that this ability to listen, what I call radical listening, is critical to our survival. We've all noticed how the divides are getting wider and wider, those political divides around the world, conservative versus liberal, right-wing versus left-wing, populism versus liberal elitism. The rhetoric is getting more personal, more vitriolic, and more divisive than ever before. And these divides, social media has done a great job of just locking us into these ideological echo chambers, right? Sealing up the walls between us. These divides between us, these ideological silos, they're hurting us deeply. Because we don't just make ideas wrong, we make the people who hold those ideas wrong, don't we? We have all kinds of labels and stereotypes that we slap onto other human beings, and we say, if you think that, I can't listen to you. I can't even be in the same room with you. The problem is that our brains have not evolved to meet the highly complex challenges that face our world today. There's a part of our brain, it's that limbic brain, that primitive reptile brain that Julia was talking about this morning. And there's a part of it called the amygdala. And this amygdala is just this little tiny almond-shaped part of our brain, and its job is to keep us alive, to keep this physical being safe and alive. So good for you, amygdala. You know, it ramps up my cortisol levels, it increases my adrenaline production, ramps up my heart rate and my blood pressure, and it does everything to prepare me to run for my life or fight for my life. The problem is, when I express a political view that's different than yours, I'm not threatening your personal safety, am I? But your poor limbic brain doesn't know that. And it goes into fight or flight. It's going to defend or attack. And then you tell me that my idea is wrong, my conclusions are wrong, the way I see the world is wrong. And I go into fight or flight, and I prepare to defend or attack. This limbic response is particularly activated in the face of political difference, researchers have found. And when our limbic brain is activated, our frontal cortex, where we do all that good thinking, where we can be rational and thoughtful, weigh pros and cons, all of that goes out the window. And if you want to see what it looks like when your frontal cortex is no longer online, go online and check out the comment section of social media feeds. Oh, it's bad. It's bad. So it's like this. I want you to imagine this little metaphor for you. Imagine that I'm in a room. And in this room is this huge, huge sphere, this giant orange sphere. It's orange, right? It's obviously orange, right? But there's someone else in this room. Maybe it's you. And they're telling me that this sphere is blue. It's irrefutably, indisputably blue. So This room is our world. These colors that we're seeing are worldviews. The lenses that we see the world through that tell us what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad, what's worth fighting for, what's okay to let go of. Now, I can yell at you, I can call you a moron and say, what an idiot, you can't see that this is orange, it's so obvious, it's so obvious. Or I can, patronize you and go, okay, I believe that you believe this is blue, sure. We do that at the family dinner table, don't we? Just to keep the peace. But how do I see what you're actually seeing? How am I going to be able to see what you're seeing? I'm going to have to walk around to where you're seeing and look from where you're looking, and oh my goodness, from over here it is blue. How about that? It is blue. This act of walking around and standing where someone else stands and seeing what they see is called radical listening. It requires radical listening. I want to tell you what I mean by this word, radical listening. Radical is from the root. Well, literally, the root of the word means root. It means the source, the essence, what is essential. Listening means to give heed to stretch our attention towards. So when I'm engaged in radical listening, I am listening into the essential human being, this person in front of me. I'm tending to, giving attention to what that person cares about, what they yearn for, what they fear. But this act of radical listening, this kind of behavior, our brains are not wired for it. This does not come naturally to us. And I don't believe that we'll make the effort to do this thing differently unless we deeply, deeply understand that the polarizing, the blaming, the shaming, the political posturing, the debating, the acrimony, it doesn't work. It's not working for any of us. When we really get that, I think we'll be willing to try something different. Radical listening is a conscious choice to override your brain's limbic wiring. It's an evolutionary imperative, and I believe it's one that we all have to participate in, this conscious evolving of our brains, if we're ever going to begin to heal the social and political divides that are threatening the health and well-being of all of us. Radical listening is a way out of these silos that have been, keeping us separate for so long. I suspect that there are forces in the world that would prefer we stay stuck in these silos. Maybe it's serving someone, but it's not serving us, and it's not serving our future. And when we come out from behind these walls, we start to listen with this depth and this authenticity, we start to create a space that didn't exist before. We create room for something new to emerge. Radical listening begins to soften the hard, unyielding ground that has arisen between us. And out of that softer earth, something new can emerge. New ways of thinking, new ways of being together, new ways of collaborating, new solutions to the problems that face this world so urgently. Radical listening, first of all, requires that you pay attention to how you're listening. Pay attention to what's going on in here. Notice when your amygdala gets flooded with this instinct to defend your ideas or attack someone else's. And in that moment of noticing, that moment of awareness, you get to choose something different. You get to choose a different response to your environment. This kind of choice is actually what allows us to create something new in this world, create these positive ripples of change. And it's what matters most to me in the world. So I've had some pushback on this idea. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about it. But I have had some people say things like, if I just listen to someone, they'll think I'm agreeing with them. They'll think I'm condoning this idea. I can't just be in the same room with someone who makes a racist comment and not say something. Or I've had another friend say, I can't listen to my wife tell me why the oil pipelines are a bad idea and not say something. Of course you can say something. Please say something. Fight for what you believe in. Absolutely. Just don't fight the other person who holds those opposing views. Because when you fight them, all you do is further entrench them into their point of view. You compel them to resist any other way of seeing the issue. I want to share a short little story I came across in an article the other day. A woman from Florida was canvassing for transgendered rights. She knocked on this one door. Man answers, says, absolutely not, I will not support that. Where I'm from, we don't like queers. She took a breath. She said in a friendly voice, I'm gay. And because she didn't attack, he got curious. And they stayed in the conversation. And after a while, he started to tell her about his wife who had a disability and how God had given him the grace to be able to love her through this disability and care for her. And she said, I couldn't agree with you more. That is what love is all about. And that's what these laws are about too, these, including transgendered folks. It's about how we treat each other. And he paused and he said, what I said before, I was probably mistaken. She let the ground between them soften just a little bit. Another popular objection is, why not just give the person with the wrong ideas the facts? Just tell them the facts. Oh, I hate to say this because we so want to believe in the myth of our rationality. And we can be rational. But when it comes to politics, political perspectives, facts and data don't change people's perspective. They just don't. We're wired to hear what we already believe. In fact, our brains get a little hit of dopamine every time we get information that confirms what we already believe. It's kind of interesting. It's almost like we're addicted to being right. My husband and daughter sometimes like to argue at the dinner table. I find it really frustrating. And there was one night, they were just going at it, and I said to my daughter, don't you get tired of arguing all the time? And she said, Mommy, I don't like arguing. I like being right. Of course, don't we all? Don't we all? But shaming and blaming doesn't work. Telling people they're wrong doesn't work. Giving people facts doesn't work. Listening works. This kind of listening works because it gives the person we're listening to the space to hear themselves think, to reflect, maybe even reject some of their initial assertions. It gives you the space and the time to think, to reflect, and maybe reject some of your initial assertions. The other week I was out for dinner with a friend of mine, and she said, I really get what you're saying with this radical listening. I do think it's important, I really do, but I don't think I could do it. It's just too hard. So I said, Patty, what would be the worst thing that could happen if you sat across the table from someone and listened to their views that you found really distasteful? I said, I would just be so uncomfortable. Yep, you'd be uncomfortable. And what would be the worst thing that could happen then? She said, I would just be really uncomfortable. And that was the worst she could think of. And I asked her, and I want to ask you, is it worth it? Is it worth it for this momentary discomfort in exchange for the possibility of new ways of being together, new ways of thinking, new ways of collaborating, new ways of solving some of these entrenched issues that face all of us? I want to end with just a short story. This is an embarrassing story. This does not make me look good when it comes to radical listening. But you can tell that I'm really passionate about this and the possibilities of radical listening in every domain of human interaction. And I was running this idea by a dear friend and colleague of mine. And her first response was, what's the point? They're never going to change my mind. I'm never going to change their mind. What's the point? And I immediately started to tell her about why this was so important and giving her all the data and the research and like why this was such a good idea. And I was trying to convince her and persuade her, and I did everything short of shaming her and blaming her. I didn't listen. I didn't come to where she was standing and see the world through her eyes. So I'd like to leave us with this call to action, all of us. Find somebody who thinks really differently than you, who sees the world really differently than you. Listen to them. Be curious about how they see the world. It's okay to be uncomfortable. Reassure your amygdala, you're not going to die. It's okay. And let the ground soften just a little between you. You'd be surprised by what can grow from that simple, single, and sincere and vulnerable act of listening. Because the answers that we're looking for, that we so urgently need, are not going to come from this side of the room or that side of the room. We need each other. We really need each other. And we need to find in ourselves the courage, the commitment, the compassion to listen to each other in new ways, to learn from each other, so that together we can start to heal the heart of this divided world. Thank you.